know you said last week it was safe to come back down, but everything that I see on the TV says otherwise. So I'm just going to stay up here at APR Studios. If you want to beam in via satellite, we can do the show. But I'm not coming back down.
You ever wonder why people are the way that they are? You ever wonder why people think the way that they think? Well, here's the answer to your questions. This is the sit down.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know. Like now, it's like hard to just be like, all right, go.
Well, now you see it.
I guess like there are some things that I was like, I kind of did want to cover. I wanted to, I guess, touch on, or for you to touch on, what has all right, what is the biggest thing you learned in APR history pertaining to specifically the connection and the, I guess, the disconnection of business relationships throughout the year, especially the hardest year, which would have been, I guess, this past year?
Wow, no. I think it's because of how we actually started this whole thing, which was we started it with friends, right? And as friends, we never ever did anything like contracts or agreements or, all the bare bones that it takes to go to grow a company and still keep everybody with you. I think that's the biggest thing that I learned as we kept going, because for me, yeah, it was my house that we were recording in to begin with. And yeah, I was doing the editing and stuff like that. But for me, it was much more of the new plan to get ourselves out. You know what I mean? And to get that proverbial check that's going to fix everything. And so for me, it was a little all or nothing. So like, I expected everybody to be like that. And so when we were just filming podcasts and just showing up on a weekly basis, things like that, and we were just focusing on getting more people to come over and film podcasts and do the same thing that we were doing, it was one of those pivots that we had to do, because it was like, all right, well, I can't film everything, especially because we locked down early in 2020 over at my household. My wife wasn't playing. I wasn't playing. We had to still keep the everything going. So it was like, really, let's go. And we locked down for about 6 months without anybody being able to even come near. And so within that time, like at first I had everybody just kind of waiting, right? Everybody was kind of like, are we still going? Are we stopping? What are we doing? And that's when I realized how big we actually had become, just as our own footprint and our own efforts, what we had been able to develop. It was one of those things that I was suddenly aware of, because everybody was calling, asking what was the next step. You remember those days, man. I was like, man, what are we going to do? And thankfully you did say the thing that, you only have to tell me like statements and I'll run with them. And one of them was like, all right, let's make the app thing. You've been talking about it. Let's make the app. And looking back on it, it makes perfect sense, because I had always said that we were making TV. We were going to make TV. And that's how we were editing everything, was for TV. And now we're actually TV. It all played in the intros, the outros, the different things that we were doing, the labels. It all made sense. But what didn't make sense to a lot of people, especially a lot of the feature creators that we lost along the way, was that I had pivoted and I didn't really ask anybody. I didn't really tell anybody until after I had it built. Some people didn't want the attention I found. Some people did not want, that wasn't part of their dream, right? Some people are shy, man. Some people, um, like they did not realize that their podcast was going to be seen by thousands of people on the global platform that we now have. I mean, to be honest, did you ever think that somebody in Denmark was going to be watching the sit down? But they're going to be, because they watched the sit down there. I mean, analytics say what they say. And our fledgling YouTube company is now something totally different, with the hands in a lot of different pies. It's weird because as we got bigger, we ended up needing those contracts, because what came up a lot was, I know in the beginning you didn't share any details about what we were going to be doing, but we didn't have any contracts. Well, if you really want to be honest about it, I didn't know what we were doing when we started out on this, because it wasn't supposed to be to where we're distributing content for over 60 different podcasts globally. I mean, that wasn't the plan. The plan was Houston, Texas. We were going to be in Houston, Texas. We were going to have the best studio in the world, right? And it wasn't until we got little brothered by the Sphere TV. I'll say their name because I still watch them. And he said that green screen was, that he hated the look and that there was no market in it. So that's when we turned up and made green screen the thing. And so we got our own look, we got our own way of doing things. But along that way, when we were growing and when we were becoming a studio that we are now, some people didn't want to get on that road. That wasn't what they asked for. They didn't want to have a weekly show. They didn't want to have to do the drive, come up with the topics. I mean, a lot of people say that they want it, but once you find out what it is, do you really know what you're ever signing up for? And so that's what, in a nutshell, I have learned over the growing pains of 2020, is that once we had to pivot, which is what everybody did in some way, shape, or form, is that some people didn't want it.
I guess, would you say it was more so like you're for sure people didn't want it, or did they have their own way of how it should have been? Because one of the things that I kind of picked up was that once people sometimes got a whiff of what it could be, they kind of think that, I guess, almost like we can do whatever they come up with.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
Once they say, okay, well, now this is what I could do, then this is what I want. 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 Yeah. And it's like, well, number one, you're not paying for it, right? And then number two, like all this editing and all this what I want, each what I want probably takes about an hour or two of time.
Yeah. And, oh man, yeah.
Right. And so it comes down to like, okay, we have to start making some decisions on, number one, who we take on, how much time we spend on each project, how much energy as far as the entire company is going to go towards this or that. And sometimes we can't afford to give people what they want. You know what I mean?
That is a lesson that we had to learn, right?
Right.
Was how we were going to use our time.
Well, no, right. Yeah, definitely. And I guess for me, like, I learned too that, like you said, people don't realize what they want until they're in front of it. Until we present them with a platform, and then they see, like you said, the possibilities, the potential, right? They see like the potential of what they can be, because, you know, like I said, studio, like, I mean, when we're filming, you can never tell that it was one of the rooms in your house, right? Like, so once, I guess, you know, once the people start seeing that, they're like, okay, well, this dude could do that, then, you know, he can do this, and that. So I guess for me, man, it kind of looked like when they realized that they weren't the main one, like the main priority. You know what I mean? This one is like, now all of a sudden we're scarce, and, you know.
Well, that happened early. That happened early. Yeah. That happened late. This happened a few times in the journey. I think the thing is that one of our failings as like a business is that I'm a failed musician. And the reason why I think I was a failed musician was the lack of support. So one of the first things that we do is that we support each other's ideas, right? Like, that's one of the mottos, right? You got to trust your own ideas. And so because we have that as the motto, we literally, you know, like, nothing is out of bounds. We don't really shut people off. We don't really say, hey, no, this is not what it is. What people fail to realize, and, you know, maybe that's just because of the closeness of our relationship when we work with people, is that there's a lot of people who are calling, like, those 5 times a day that they might call about their one thing, or you know, like, and it's also like, for all intents and purposes, it's a side project for us, right? We had our main job is to be fathers, right? And our second job is to be providers. That's the reason why we go and work day jobs, right? And then after that, it's to be moguls, which we have now become, because we have been chipping away at this stone that is media, to where, really, to be honest, it wasn't until the George Floyd impact that I didn't realize how big we had become, and like how many people were looking to us to, you know, in a different ways that we serve the community through media. That my DMs went crazy. I know Carl Ward's went crazy as well. It was one of those things. So, I mean, looking back on it, we wanted to do a podcast company, man, but who knew what a podcast was? I mean, there was Joe Budden, right, that a lot of us knew. And then we tried that show, right? we tried that show. Now Rogan. We had,
Rogan, Budden, Vlad, we were just trying.
But now we do something that's uniquely us. We have our own streaming platform and stuff. We're self-sufficient.
But no, this is a question I want you to think about before I get back.
Okay.
We transitioned from one-dimensional to like 8-dimensional, right? Because it went from, like you said, podcast to, we were having meetings about, okay, we need this type of like different types of content, right? With, you know, we went through cooking, we went through, you know, fitness, we went through all the different possibilities, in which we still have, you know, relationships and possibilities of doing, especially now that we're streaming and we have ads. So it's pretty much like, hey, we don't even necessarily need a client, you know, we can just run your ad and But from the producer side, which I guess of course, a lot of people don't know about. You never really talk a lot about it.
Yeah.
From the producer side, I guess what was the most difficult thing when we're transitioning from being one-dimensional, which is podcast only, to where we are now? And we're
Gotcha.
gonna and I want you to think about that pertaining to like personal,
Mm-hmm.
business, like financial,
Mm-hmm.
and the actual workload, like
No,
the
I got you.
technical. All right. All right.
All right. So what most people don't realize is that it was like for a lot of it, um, everybody serves their role within the company, but mine was primarily head of creative, right? Um, I was usually the last person to say, yeah, let's add this person over to the roster. Let's not add this person to the roster. I gave out invitations. I did cold calls, things like that. Um, but a lot of Always Fresh Record, it falls on my shoulders. And for that, and I say that for the simple fact that early in 2020, around June, it turns out, I was in a fire and I burned myself really, really bad. And this was at the point where we had just started up the app. We had just pivoted the website once again. We had lost a few of our people once again just because of COVID and whatnot. They had other priorities, of course. Um, to be honest, COVID has hit APRTV family in multiple ways, in multiple stages. We have had to pull together. We have had scares, we have had losses, but at the same time, like we've kept we've kept it going and kept it growing, um, which is in itself a testament to everybody involved. But personally, got the when I was going over through the rehab of everything of being burned and everything, it was a lot of, most people don't tell you about these things. But through rehab, you have mental dips. That is just part of the healing process. I myself, when I dipped, everything in APR came to a standstill because there was a lot of people who were had moves going and moving, and it just wasn't my priority at that time. To be perfectly honest with everybody in the halls, they all know. I mean, like this is one of those. Um, one second. This is one of those times where I just did not have it to care about anymore. Um, and in the end, I had to keep going because, as you and I say behind closed doors, this is a little bit too big to close. We can't close it anymore. Those conversations are gone. Whenever we're gone and whenever we're finally closing doors, it's going to be either somebody's going to buy us out, suck us in, or we're just going to be, you know, one of us just can't do it anymore. We're going to run out of money. But it's at this point where a lot of people depend on us. A lot of people were checking in, and I didn't really tell everybody how I was doing when I was having my issues of trying to figure out my own mortality and whatnot. Because that was my 39th year. I guess I had a midlife crisis, but I don't really know because we were too busy to really stop. And luckily enough, we were too busy to stop. And it turned out that, like all things with APR, doing the work kind of got me through it. Um, I kind of, like it always is really crazy. Like I'll be down in the dumps, and then Carlos will have a show, and that topic will be the one that needs to speak to me, or Dr. Andrae, man, I'm Dr. Pfizer. I'm sorry I messed up your name, but like he'll say something that will get me going, and everybody, like we have group chats and whatnot off camera, and they just check in and let me know, and it's like you only get me on camera during my birthday month, so that's why you're here. But it's one of those things where last year, yeah, we had some success, but it wasn't easy. And no matter what anybody really thinks, of where we're at now, because a lot of people seem to be noticing us. I don't know what that's all about, but a lot of people are. And personally, what that meant was that I had to realize that APR was not going anywhere. So I moved because during the George Floyd issues, some of our shows got threats and whatnot. So we did proper precautions just to do this long term, to continue to do the work in the community, because we're part of a couple of different coalitions and whatnot. And when you do work out in the community, the people who don't like it, they'll let you know. But when I did move, we built a whole new studio with a 9-foot high, 20-foot wide green screen wall. Our lighting is all to specifications of where it will help us with set up and break down faster. Everything is wired for sound. We actually have a sound area upstairs specifically just for sound recording. The family, and I always thank my beautiful wife for this, they're the ones who have had to adjust so much during this whole time. We never really asked them, did we? We just kept going. And they all understand, because what people don't realize is that, I sleep really sporadic hours to get the editing done, to maintain the website, and to, make sure our apps are flowing greatly. You know what I mean? Everybody in APR, everybody does something different. And that's what I can't stress enough, is that I'm so glad we're, after these 3 years, we're going on year 3. Can you believe that, DeAndre? Year 3. But as we're going over into year 3, everybody has kind of shaken themselves into the positions that they want to be in, right? Some of our shows have become part of the family, to where they are functioning corners of the business as well. It's one of those things where us just pressing record for years has helped so many people.
Yeah.
It's that's the surprising thing, brother, because that wasn't our goal. Our goal was to get the 2,000 back. That's what nobody understands, was that it was the equipment that we were trying to get it back. We were trying to get the cost of the cameras back. And then now, we have shows that help people. We have shows that entertain people. We have shows that make people laugh. We have created friendships with many people that we probably would never, ever know. We've contributed to our community, which is crazy. That wasn't the goal. That wasn't the goal at all. But we did it. We're still doing it. It's pretty interesting. Like I said, we don't even give ourselves the option to start anymore. So it's kind of like everything is kind of adjusted. And the more I talk to people, the more that people think that it will never go away. Isn't that weird? We got hoodies and shirts now, bruh.
I don't know. I think it just kind of like it shows like the work you put in, because that speaks higher than how much you talk about it. Like, you can say all day long, you talk to people, and then they, now they see you are not going nowhere. I'm like, I don't care what conversation you have, when you turn around and look at how much content that has been produced and how much hours is put in, like that speaks louder than anything you can ever tell anybody. So, I just think, like, when you just take a look at the body of work, like, I'm just like sitting there scrolling through everything we have on the app when I tested it, yesterday. And it's like, dang, like, we really got a lot of stuff. So it's like,
what did you think about that, though? Like, as somebody who saw the app, like, you saw the app for the first time yesterday, And like you're part of the company. So it's like one of those things where like you get to reflect on how much was created during this time. And like to be honest, like I say all the time, if it wasn't for you saying, "Hey, make the app," we wouldn't have an app. So like looking at that yesterday, how was that looking at Art Monkey Radio? Like that exists now, bruh. By Emmy
Mm,
Award winning Oliver Banks. Let's just put that out there.
um, I guess like for me, honestly, it was like a trip down memory lane, knowing how that like there was so much behind the scenes of each thing.
Yeah.
And even though like there was a lot of content that, we just broadcast without necessarily having filmed at the studio, but like the actual stuff we did, that's what really was just like like you just said 3 years, and it just doesn't seem like 3 years because of so much we did. It just went by so fast. It's like, dang, that was all in just 3 years. So like that's what it really did. Like when I was looking, I was like, yeah, I'm looking at this show, but I still just remember before the show, and everything after it, and then like talking about it the week before that, how we were going. I mean, it was just that's what brought it to my attention. Like even just the background was like everything that was done just to simply put that in place, sitting in the right positions, putting the chairs in the right positions, mic check, and doing this and that. So it was like, I don't know. It was kind of weird. Like it wasn't one of those moments because it wasn't like I was surprised that we made it to the point where we can watch it on TV. It was more like, dude, we like the actual stuff we did. You know what I mean? Like
I always say that the best shows were before and after, right? It was everyone like we all got into the room after the lights were off, and that's what I see when I see all of it, right? Because as somebody who knows what's in the vault, we didn't put everything on. We didn't put, yeah, like we didn't like. There's still, I would say, about a good 200 or so episodes that nobody's ever seen past when they release, right? Um, and that was purposeful. And the reason why is because when we started the app, and it was a cost thing, right? So it was like, all right, how much do we put into the cloud from our vault? And so I took the ones that I thought might be best, the ones that we made the less mistakes on, um, the ones that were kind of closer to the finishing product of TV. Just because I didn't think anybody was going to watch, man. I didn't. I didn't think anybody was going to download it. I just thought, man, like we're just throwing money to the wind on this. Let's try to keep costs low. And so, now we got the Amazon cloud, working on our own private cloud, that type of thing. But like, investing in the technology that we hadn't used before, streaming live, that whole concept, and, doing it with people watching. That's just the thing, is that a lot of APR rollouts, if you're first there, it's not going to be perfect, man. It's not, and we're not even promising that it's going to be perfect. We're just telling you we're doing it. And so, for our live streams, it was like stuff where like the computers couldn't handle the stream for 24/7, man. Like we didn't have, I didn't have the programming right. I didn't understand how to program TV to run 24 hours, right? Um, Part of that too was the evolution of Art Monkey Radio. I mean, that was, man, we had been talking about that for a year, where I was like, man, I just want to have music on the platform in some way, shape, or form. How do we get music on the platform? And then it was DJ Too Deep, and it was Oliver. I finally just pinned him down, and because Oliver had finally seen the example that I kept telling him about, the lo-fi girl. I was like, man, everybody's listening to lo-fi music. Just give me 30 seconds, man. Just give me 30 seconds. And I'll make a show out of it. And that actually became the cornerstone to where I learned how to stream content, because it was trying to keep that up for multiple days. Remember when we were trying to keep it up for 7 days, and it was like, man, like we just got to figure that out. Once we figure that out, that's cool. And now that's the thing about APR that's really interesting to me, is that it's my clearest example that if you start anything, eventually it will become something that people will look at and admire. There's nothing admirable about me, but people look at it and they go, man, you put all this effort into this thing. And I'm like, no. I couldn't do it without you doing the sit down and being the first person to say, let's do the sit down. I couldn't do it without Carlos over here saying, hey, man, we're about to make these shows, and him being Carlos. You know what I mean? I couldn't be Carl Ward. I would never, ever do anything in the mangrove community without Carl Ward. But he brought me back over to my old home of childhood and made me get involved in the community. And it's like, people always say this stuff, and that's the reason why I don't go on to my airwaves. When I was a musician, I tried so hard to get people to like me, and they didn't. They didn't like my voice. They didn't like the song I wanted to play. They didn't like the way that I wanted to go about it. Because in my world, it's all about life, love, and the lack thereof. And like, who really wants to go out and get dressed up to hear that type of music? And I get it now. I get it. So I wasn't made for that. But I was made for TV, and somehow, yeah.
How much do you think that kind of shifted your vision on just, I guess, the media business alone, like
the music part?
No, just not necessarily music, but the whole experience of going through. I'm trying, as an artist, I have to get people to like me. I didn't know why they didn't, have to realize why. I mean, just that whole experience, like she's just a failed artist, right? So just like that whole experience of the stuff that you went through, for that. How do you feel it shaped your ideas and visions for the company we created? And the reason why I'm asking that is because you can admit, just like I can, since we're there a lot, like behind there making the decisions, having the discussions. Yeah. Things changed after the Sphere conversation. And I had the front row seat to see that really affected you and a lot of the things that we did from that point on, based on that experience. So I guess because it was, I guess for me, it was kind of clear, like the direction we went in was a lot motivated by that, what happened with that situation and how you felt coming out of that conversation and stuff like that. Right. It felt like I said, you said like, I felt a little brothered. Right. So that that was just an example of how an experience can kind of shape the way you move from that. So I guess, like, how did that artist experience shape the way you moved from?
That's a good question. Okay. So I wasn't a total failure. I mean, like, I got enough support to make 7 albums, right? But the thing is that after 100 songs, there was really no hits, right? There's nothing that really nobody can go, all right, this is your song, right? With that said, so I totally left, like my last, in fact, I was with my wife my last show that like I had scheduled, and it was Afton, AFTON. It's one of those shows where like you got to pay and sell your own tickets and do all the different things. And I wouldn't say it's a fall from grace, but like I had some other successes in the business to where like, oh, this is where we're at right now. I'm over here literally asking my friends once again to buy tickets to come see my show, that type of stuff. And I remember that day I was getting all prepared for it, and I didn't go. I stayed home and I watched The Big Bang Theory with my wife. And I did not go to my last show. I didn't show up. I didn't load up the car. I didn't do any of that. So when I walked away, it was basically like, I understand I'm not going to be the superstar I wanted, right? And that's humbling because like you put a lot of time and effort into your art, and like, it is. It's a lot of time wasted at the end. I understand that. I understand how people feel that way. So once I got into this whole thing, and you were there in the early days, like, our motto is we press record, you become the star, right? I was going to be that support for every single person that I ever wanted to support me, right? If you don't think that your voice sounds good, well, they said the same stuff about me. So therefore, I'm not going to let you listen to that because that stopped me and it's not going to stop you. Right? If you're afraid of being in the camera, well, I was afraid of being on stage once, but I got booed, so it doesn't matter. So I'm going to pass that lesson on to you, and I'm just going to press record anyway, and I'll make you look great. And that's kind of how our business evolved from just being the people who pointed the camera to like being, the producers. We were the guys behind them, coaching them and telling them what to do right and how to come back the next time. And hey, you don't have a guest this time, then I'll get you a guest this time, right? You'll need to be over here at Wednesday. It's scheduled already. We're going to just press record, right? Because I remember that you got to get the 10,000 reps, right? I taught myself how to play guitar. That's the reason why I wasn't a jukebox like they wanted me to be, is because I can only play like I can play, right? You can only be the Andrae the way you can be the Andrae, right? Like we can try it. We can try many different ways, but 9 times out of 10, we're going to revert back to who we are, right? So like when we did APR, I made everybody embrace whoever they are, right? If you're the Latino conservative and you feel a certain way, then be the Latino conservative, man. Don't kowtow because you want me to like make your video and put it up on my channel that's predominantly Black. I didn't ask you to do that. I asked you to be you, right? And so that's how we did everybody every single time. So we're a lot of the times where instead of just pressing record, we're spending hours and days and weekends and this and that trying to help everybody. So when I was over here trying to figure out, so us getting paid wasn't working because everybody became a friend and became part of the family and became part of the movement. So when I went over to APRTV and I was like, hey man, I have a way to help your business, and in turn you can help my business. All right. And essentially, what he said is what I was doing wasn't part of his plan. All right. And that it wasn't worth the time, but he was willing to listen to me. And I've never ever gotten mad about that one. And you've heard me say this many times. It's not the fact that he little brother me, it's because at the time I needed to be little brother, right? But at the same time, it was, you didn't tell me what to do next, right? You weren't asking for me to still be in that Shark Tank with you. You were just telling me I wasn't ready. And so a lot of that, when I came out of that meeting, as you know, I called up everybody and I said, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to be. And it was because I had been on those stages. I had been in those rooms with producers and studios where like they tell you what you can't do. the music business or the artistic business in itself is so amazing because somebody will tell you honestly, without a hesitation, that they don't like it. Right? They don't realize that when they say that they don't like it, that they're saying that they don't like you. All right. When somebody told me recently that they didn't want to be a part of APR TV anymore, it wasn't about them, it was about the rejection of me, right? Because I take it on to these shoulders and go, hey, we're doing this for everybody. Well, not everybody wants us to do stuff for them. And especially how we're doing it now, which is on a grander scale, you know?
Do you think it's people like really saying you, or that they just have their own stuff going on?
No, I think that looking back, it's my own eternalization of this mission of APR.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And that's why, like I always say in hindsight, yeah, I understand. Right. When we went over to the app format and the streaming format and everything like that, I didn't ask anybody. I just did it. So when it became a hit, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like anybody really expected it. Like you see, you know, like you go on to the app now, there's people that we don't film, but that are very much part of the movement, right? And that's another thing, is that we started acquiring like-minded individuals to start putting their property on our airwaves, right? Because I think it was time. 2020 made it to where it was a stimulus because we weren't going out of the house, we weren't going over here or there, and for me, what I did during that time was that I to keep the family going, I looked over to see who was still hustling during a pandemic. And that's when we got Jamal Nolan. That's when we got the unauthorized history. That's when Latino conservative grew more. But like, you know, that's when I hate calling it the properties, but the properties of APR became diverse and we became a network rather than just a collective of people, if that makes any sense. So it really wasn't like a rejection of me. It's what we've become. And so, like, that's what it is.
I think when you touched on the artist thing, it kind of made a little bit more sense, because I can say I always wondered why you took stuff so personally. Mm-hmm. And when you said you wanted to give people the support you never got, mm-hmm. I can definitely see how that, like, when people walk away or when a deal doesn't get done, or you know, something happens, it's like, okay, I see it, because you're like, I didn't have this at all when I was trying to make it, and this is what I want to do for people that I didn't get. So I mean, it's a little bit more of a personal mission, let alone a business thing, which makes sense a lot now, considering what you went through as an artist. You know what I mean? That's kind of like why I asked the question. It was like, where, you know, how do you feel like being an artist and doing that before you even did APR kind of shaped your vision for APR? But then, like I said, once you spoke about the support, which you kind of always said that from the beginning, like we're the outlets, you know, we're you know, people, you know, you got a dream, you plug it in, and we're the outlet. We'll just help you display it, like, type of thing.
It's funny how many things we used to say back then that we've become.
Yeah, it kind of, like I said, it just I guess it kind of speaks to, like I said, the personal experience. Like, that's why things were a lot personal, because you're like, you know, you really wanted to give that support, not necessarily, you know, take over or take businesses or take content and stuff like that. You really,
everybody's handpicked.
Want us to see people make it.
Yeah, no, like, you've been there. Everybody's handpicked. Like, we turn away people now, especially, like, that's the craziest thing in our, like, And our evolution is that we're at the point where like we're literally saying, no, I don't want to deal with that. Oh, or no, that's too much. Or maybe you should get this person to do that, right? And I feel bad about it now, but it really was, man. Like everybody was handpicked. Like this is not wasted energy. I'm about to turn 40 years old. By the time this is airing, I'll be 40 years old. At 23, my health was so bad that I never ever thought another 17 years would be devoted to this storyline. And so I don't play games. I'm not, excuse my language, but fuck it. I determine that I don't fuck around. So it's like I know that I'm annoying. I know that tagging everybody in the APR family on one post just to say, hey, look over at the apps is annoying. I know scrolling down social media and seeing alwaysfreshrecord.com on just about everything is annoying. But let me tell you, every single time I put it on there, somebody clicks on it. And if they don't click on that link, then they click on APR, and we got thousands of people that go over to our website that necessitates for you to either download the app or to click on the streams or do it something like that. Because you want to know something, bro? I'm not getting a trophy, right? If somebody in APR hits, man, they hit, right? Nobody knows who the hell I am. We only recently started putting the little logo of me in the corner, and that was only because Oliver Banks made it for me, and I love his work. And so we put it on up there because it's part of the APR treasure trove. But really and truly, this isn't about me, man. In the end, yeah, the scope of it, they'll go, okay, who did that? And then, like, hopefully DeAndre would be like, hey, Trey put in through a lot of different things. But it's not just you and me on the group chat anymore. There's lots of people on the group chat. There's lots of people just trying to do something with their lives that we can contribute to. And as long as that's the case, we can't close the doors. We can't deviate from our mission. We can't become the people who steal your property like they stole mine. We can't be that person. We can't be the person who's over trying to make you be any other artist than what you're trying to be, right? Because that's what they tried to do for me. They tried to tell me I was Hootie and the Blowfish, but everybody knows I love Dave Matthews. So it's like, it's two different people, two different things, but you tell me that I'm black, and then I got to be this guy. And it's like, I got you. I understand. Like, I wear a baseball cap still to this day. I get it. But I'm not that guy. I was never trying to be that guy. I've always tried to be Travius Lawson. And so many people have tried to tell me otherwise, that when I found the DeAndre Hinton, when I found a Carl Ward, when I found a Carlos J. Malave, I said, oh, that's who you are? Well, then let's do something. And we are, bro. We are. It's so fun. It's crazy.
Well, sure, man. We probably go on and on for hours and hours about APR and the history in the beginning, and we'd definitely probably do a part two, a continuation.
We always say that, but we don't. Neither one of us like to reflect.
One of the things that I guess 2020 did, the pandemic did, was make things a lot more easier to press record, because we don't have to go all the way to one spot every day just to do this, So, I mean, we randomly just did this on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so that's definitely, but I guess to end out, and then you kind of touched on a lot of things that you learned too, like throughout this whole thing.
Yeah.
But, 40 years of life, I guess, well, first, 40 years of life, let's go ahead and answer that question. Like, I guess, what would you say to the next I want to build the network, the next trader, producer, visionary, and then touch on what's to come as much as you can speak on what's to come this year for APR.
Right. I'll give a preview, but we're not gonna give them all. It's the beginning of the year. But all right. 40 years of life, man. What I have learned is that you will still be that same person no matter how old you get. Whatever that person is, it will be the same person you will always be. I like to think, man, I remember that person who was 15 years old, just like I remember that person who was 39 years old. And it's weird because they sometimes talk to each other, and even though they have the same voice, the same mannerisms, there's two different men. The man I was, the boy I was, and the man that I became after my grandfather passed, really is one of those things that kind of changed it all, because I realized that time isn't always going to be our most valuable asset, right? At one point in time, it's going to be time, it's going to be short, and so it's going to be the experience and the knowledge, right? That's what I try to pass on to as trader producer. It's always the experience and the knowledge of something. Like, you know, as somebody who's in that group chat with me, a lot of the time I say, this is what happened to me, so this is why I do this, or why we're going to do this, or something like that. And it's just because the experience that I've had kind of is what, you know, I make a lot of gut decisions. But the experience has taught me that I can get us all through it, right? If I can just get the buy-in of everybody together, and I'll figure it out along the way, because nobody's going to work for us, right? For us the way that I will, because I believe in myself. And that's the thing that comes with age, is that you have more examples of when, like, the things were stacked against you, you were able to still go, right? When I look over at the app, right, and I see the longevity, and I see how we pivoted, and how we are so much more than the first show, which was the Planet Perk podcast, right? Where we had to ask for him to put always press record on there, and he did. But now every single show ends with the always press record outro. Every single one has a featured spot on the website that didn't always exist. You gotta just start doing tiny little steps, and you'd be very, very surprised by what it will turn out to be, right? Because this journey, right? You and I know, man, when we watch an episode of a sit down, whether or not we had a fight that night, whether or not we even wanted to be there, whether or not, like, I had a job that was kicking my butt, rather you were having a job that was kicking your butt, whether or not, like, the students were on us, that, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much backstory that the 352 episodes that we did that first year, 352 episodes, nobody will ever possibly have an idea. Even as I sat down to try to write the story recently as like a book form, just to like give people hope and motivation and tools, nobody will ever understand that our first outside client said, all right, here is my footage. Can you get me that tomorrow? Right? I didn't know how to edit, so I had to download a program, watch a YouTube video, And that's how Pressing Issues number 18 was made. That was all the first year. I mean, so it was like within that time, I became an editor, right? Within that time, I evolved as a webmaster. Within that time, I became a technical person, right? You kept feeding me people who were like worth it, right? Carlos Malavey, Carl Ward, and people who, while I was over here sitting there cutting this shit up, right? Like, you were out there saying, hey, this is what we're doing over here. And we got so many people who believe in us now. It's some responsibility, right? Some responsibility that comes with it. And
well, speaking of, let's go ahead and get into what we got future, because I know my battery's not going to last this long.
All right.
So I want to.
No, we got.
Let's go ahead and brief about what we got coming up. I guess I can plug in my own kid's very excited by his own cartoon, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
So I know we got some stuff coming up with the kids section definitely this year. But what other stuff that we have in store that maybe we haven't just?
Let's give a few previews. All right.
Give me exclusives.
We got more sit down coming. We got more translating success coming. We got more mangrove coming. Right. Mm-hmm. We have Dr. Andrae Fraser, who will be joining us if all things go right. We have hopefully more kids programming in 2021. I believe that, education took a hit in 2020. Not for anybody's fault, right? But we can always help and try to get a little bit more programming in there. And Dylan's going to be a beast. He already knows. Speaking of APR kids, we're going to get some kids gameplay going on here because the CEO of APR Kids says it's way too long since he's made a video, so he'll be here. So we all know that. We got some people within different parts of the country, and I'm just going to keep that under wraps because we're working on moving into films more, distributing films. We're helping musicians and artists with Art Monkey Radio more and more. That's actually evolving, a whole new season of that. I saw some of the loops that are coming. It's going to be fun. We're actually getting really good at that. We actually have a partnership with the HC Universal Network, so we're going to start bringing in some of their audio-only podcasts. They have a roster of 60 that will be coming over in different phases. We're also going to start up a meditation app as well. We're starting up a We Go Live app that will feature spoken word poetry and whatnot. That will be part of our conglomerate because all of a sudden, now that we can make apps, a lot of people want our apps. So that's something else that we're offering. I believe that everybody should have it. We're going to do some audiobooks this year. We were supposed to film a movie last year, but we're not even there right now. We're going to just try to bring more filmmakers out there. We got a great friend and the head of MechaCon, who also has a film festival, along with another film festival based out of Austin, Texas, which also wants to do some work with us. Man, there is so much going on over at APR TV. Oh, let's just get. Should we drop it? Okay, we'll drop it. All right. So for all these people who are out there selling their goods, right? Like a lot of the times, Andrae and I, we get over there, and people wouldn't have websites, they wouldn't have this or that, but they had products to sell. So APR Shop, just because everybody knows, I don't want to just sit there and have just our own merchandise. Such as stickers, hoodies, and hats. So if you want them, you can always go to Always Press Record and get them. But we also have the APR Shop, which will be starting up. And APR Shop will actually be a conglomerate of Always Press Record creators and their merchandise, along with independent artisans and their merchandise. And the reason why is because we want to have an area for people who are just out there trying to hustle and get their products sold. We want to help them out. We will also are branching out into commercials, and that's also where APR Shop really got involved with. And the reason why is because with APR Shop, you literally have a real estate place that is seen by thousands of people per month. And if we can just help with yourselves in any way, shape, or form, we are open to doing so and helping. And so with APR Shop, it's literally if you need a place to sell your stuff, this is your place to sell your stuff. So get in touch with us. Always press record as always. And welcome back, DeAndre, back to the airways. You have no idea what we've been doing behind the scenes, but every single time we're away, we do think about y'all, and we appreciate everybody who is, just really like from day one, just been sitting on this journey with us, and it hasn't always looked good, but I think the content's always been there. So I'll let you end it, DeAndre.
Oh man, you said it all, man. Like I said, like it's funny because it reminds me how we used to start off, like with me and Carlos or something. It's like all our episodes start off like, wait, what are we doing? Like,
what are we doing?
Yeah, so I was like, that kind of brought back today, man, it's always good to catch up and give people like a kind of rundown of what we got going on. Like I said, we get caught up in doing things. We forget to let people know. Like you said, every year we said we're going to do like a wrap up show or a show that's and it's like we go by and it's like we've been too busy actually doing the stuff that we're supposed to be talking that we're doing.
We were supposed to have a 500th episode. We were supposed to do a 500th episode.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you look back and it's like, wait a minute, 500 just left. Oh, dang. So, but nah, man, it's definitely been a journey, and it's we learned a lot business wise. Like I said, from the relationships that we were able to form, some that we didn't get to keep, like I said, if you've never endured a startup, this will definitely open your eyes, and it's not for everyone, clearly. But man, it still is, man. It's fun, you know what I mean, and it's like I said, it's just such an opportunity, really, to just see things, to see yourself, really, because we're on camera a lot, and if we're not on camera, our work is on camera, our connections have been on camera. Like you said, it's a lot that we put into one episode or one show. There's a lot of miles we put in on cars, and a lot of hours we put in at working at entire shows for 8 hours that didn't get published at all. We've been through the whole.
It won awards. It won awards. So in the end, I guess, they did the right thing.
Right. Either way, just the fact that was after we got off of our jobs and had to go do that, and so it was like, just that whole day. But just thinking, like you said, thinking back and looking at how it was compared to how it is now. And it's like, okay, that makes you appreciate those days. That makes you appreciate the ups, the downs, the arguments, the issues. And it's like, okay, if this were we thought from the beginning that this would be the final product, then okay, I'll do it again. You know what I mean? Like, once these days up, well, this is what we were building the whole time. Then it was like, it was definitely pretty cool. And
that's the weird part.
And my I guess favorite thing is really like, I guess, looking to see like all the relationships that I did bring, and a lot of them are still here, or they brought in other people. And so it was like, you sit back and you're like, dang, you really planted a seed when you start seeing people doing now what you were doing in the beginning. So it's like, okay, we kind of set certain things in motion. Like people are giving us ideas, bringing us different avenues of money, bringing us different relationships. So it's like, yeah, so I kind of started out doing like, it was like, yeah, this is, I'm gonna be content. All right, I can get someone with this kind of content. I can do this with this kind of content. But seeing like you said, I guess the cornerstones, of a lot of our content, where that's coming from, it's cool sitting back knowing like I called that, I knew this guy was going to come in and make a splash, and I knew this one over here was going to come in and make a splash. And,
the thing is that they're now trained up to where they don't even need us. That's how crazy it is. And then they still stuck around. It's like everybody is like, all right, so when we're going next time, now we're part of it. We're part of so many teams now that it's fun. It's fun looking back on that, when like we would tell people this is where we would be, and now people want to be a part of it. Like you did a lot of cold calls. You know how it is. You're doing what? To do, huh? You want us to go over to where in Katy? Why? And, and then now it's like, we don't have time. I'm sorry about that. But we'll keep you on the list. And now we can entertain ourselves. Now we can see it. But it's like, back when I was like, man, I'm cutting this to TV. You know what I mean? Like we had that conversation. Or like telling people how to do intros and outros and stuff like that. Like you remember all those little things that we're now, we just don't have those same conversations anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you remember like trying to get 20 people? Remember when Carlos first had no, it wasn't Carlos who had the first viral hit. It was Big Sarge. Big Sarge had the PTI because you called me up. You called me up and you said, did I just hear Big Sarge on PTI get a shout out? And I said, huh? Let me go find out. And I went online and I looked up and I watched that whole PTI to get over to the last 15 minutes.
15 seconds.
Yeah, the 15 seconds. And then like we cut it, and then we took that clip, added our APR magic on it, gave it over to Big Sarge, and that at one point in time was 423 views, and we thought that was amazing. Right. And then fast forward to another one of our big ones, which was Carlos J. Malave's, the story about a boy where like he was like, we literally made that in the green screen of the old garage where the door would flex to the wind. And we did it and we made it and it got 10,000 views. And we were like, man, I wonder if we'll ever have a video like that again. And that just goes to show you, man, like it's fast, those successes in this game, because we don't even think about them. We don't even celebrate half of them anymore, man. When we got to 1,200 downloads, we didn't do anything. Like, I don't even think I put up a post, man. That's like how like nonchalant it is about it. And so, I enjoyed this time, man. I am so curious about how people will talk about us a year from now, considering I know what's coming next. And so you know what's coming next as well. So like that we're making TV now, people. It's the best way to put it. It's we're coming for HBO, we're coming for all of them, and we're gonna do it our way, to where nobody will ever say that we copied any of them.